Hello. So we're going to try to get my yoga mat and my full height in this. The Facebook HD camera is nice. Like, it makes a nicer picture, I think, than my other one, but its depth is all crazy, and I have to put so much more height on my on my setup. So hopefully the wind won't blow too hard, and it'll just have to cut off the top of my head. But before we get to kind of the mat, we need to make a lighting adjustment. So now I'm going to move some more plants. We've been through a few failed streams. I'll be right back with y'all. Because the world of trying to make digital yoga happen is not just set it up and go. You have to think about a lot of things and learn a lot of things to do it. And if you love in-person yoga, which I do, it was not necessarily a fun adjustment to make in 2020, getting everything to digital. But I have some ways I normally do it for my private clients, and I haven't been doing lives in a while. So trying it with the, again, nicer camera. I have got some tea over to the side. You're definitely going to hear me cough at some point because I have COVID again, post-vaccine COVID. And so far, neither myself nor my partner knows of anybody that we have given it to. So my hope is that the vaccine has kept us from transmitting it to anybody, even though we managed to get it to the point of having a little bit of symptoms. I have had just a persistent cough at night has been my primary indication that there's something off. And this has been such a strange time for me. Maybe it'll tie in your mind in the rest of the yoga. But also, if you want to not hear all my opinions, one, that's too bad. You can go to someone else's yoga and turn this off. But two, you can wait until we get to the physical practice, and you'll know that we're there when I come down to my back on the mat. So I first wanted to open with a little bit of, there seems to have been just an Omicron bomb that has gone off in my town and the South in the US in general. Everybody seems to be sick or quarantining, or probably doesn't know that they have it. If you are recovering from COVID, if you have recovered from it, but you maybe still have some congestion and things like that, just lingering, I highly recommend, again, a hot sock. This is just an athletic sock with a knot tied in it that is full of any kind of beans or rice that you have, just dry beans or dry rice. You microwave it I do it like 30 seconds at a time so it doesn't cook them, but microwave it till it's nice and hot, and then hold it against wherever you kind of feel that tightness. I kind of have a circuit that I do where I'll hold it around where I think my bronchial structure is, and I'll then make sure I get kind of up closer to my throat. I make sure that I get the sides of my lungs, and then I put it behind me and make sure I get the backs of my lungs, and the heat will help loosen up whatever is in there. The other thing, in addition to staying hydrated, taking whatever supplements your doctor or your nurse practitioner has recommended, I do postural draining, and this means, I'll show you here, finding a surface, and you can have as much, you can lean off the side of your bed. If that's easier, you can support as much of your upper body as you need to. But you get a bowl underneath your face, rest your lower body, hold yourself up, and let gravity kind of move whatever is in your respiratory tract down, and then cough while you're upside down and spit into the bowl. It's terrible. But that's where we're at. We are self-managing a really serious illness, everybody who is. And it has been a really disturbing time for me, this COVID stuff, because being sick with a cough has been absolutely normalized for me for my entire life. I have been a snotty, phlegmy person since my early childhood and have done the appropriate medical things for that. But my partner laughed and laughed when I said, well, look, I had a 7th grade teacher who called me Smokey, and I definitely was not doing anything with any vices at that point in my life. So for my whole life, like, you go to school with a nasty cough and snot all over everything. You go to work with that. So I've gone to work with probably feeling worse than I have this round with COVID, and the respiratory part of the COVID that I had last year. Also, I would have gone to wherever, because the idea, we're lacking in our culture in the US, the idea that you should protect others by either, we're not wearing masks. Nobody ever suggested to me, wear a mask if you're having a little respiratory stuff. Nobody did that either. So I would have always not been the only one doing it, because who does that, right? So it's not normalized to have that protective view of the community, because my getting that education and performing in the classroom and my doing that work output have always been considered by everything around me, and then eventually myself, more important than resting, recovering from illness, or protecting anybody else around me. So it's been this kind of crazy to think about, if this is how sick you really are with COVID, how sick I have been at work in the past. And sometimes it's been because there's not paid leave, and sometimes it's been because there is an understaffed position and the deadline's there and literally nobody else is going to do it. This is America, right? So I had a lot of thoughts about a lot of things. Of course, we're all supposed to be kind of contemplating going from one year to the next. First of all, my tests have come back negative for COVID, but I have been quarantining because my partner's tests came back positive. Based on my symptoms that I have, meaning just this cough, I really think that it's at least a strong immune response that the vaccine caused. So I had a level of exposure strong enough to create a big immune response. Definitely not as big and bad as last year's immune response or damage. Again, hopefully having been kept at a level by my immune system that although the virus caused these symptoms in me, they were not able to travel from me to anybody else. And that's the point of getting that vaccine, is even if I'm affected a little bit, other people that I'm around don't have to be affected in that same way. And the day though that we found out that he definitely was positive, I was so dismayed, because we have worked really hard to avoid, I guess, I have been more avoidant than my partner has of public spaces and maskless spaces, but nonetheless, I also have a lot of social needs. I also, don't love isolation, and having been vaccinated, feeling good about that, and feeling that, at least it will not transmit from me, even if I'm exposed to it, and that there's a level of exposure that I can withstand that's going to be okay. It's really easy though, finding out, okay, I've done all of that and I still have to quarantine, to get really pessimistic, really bitter about the people who refuse to get vaccinated, some of whom I know personally, plenty of whom actually. And I feel like we have been pointed many times over the course of this pandemic into this individual responsibility thing, because culturally that's where we are. That's how we know how to interpret anything in the US. It's unfortunate, but because of all of that history, acculturation, and even the ways that information has been disseminated and ways that all of these things have been characterized, is it feels like, it's each of these individual persons' responsibility and sort of fault that I now have to quarantine and take this personal responsibility on myself, having already borne the burden of the personal responsibility of getting the vaccine. So I just think that we are conceiving of a lot of this in the wrong way. And I'll walk through why. And again, if you don't want to listen to me talking now, wait. Go to the part of the video where I lie down on the mat and we will start doing ab exercises. But right now I'm talking because I can and I want to. So I feel there are a number of structures and systems around us that have to do with how bad this pandemic has gotten, how long it has persisted, are terrible priorities, right? It's a big joke right now on the internet that are on social media about the CDC and their recommendations at this point just being like, I don't know, get sick, just don't miss work. And we'll get to why that ties into thinking about a few other things later. But in terms of the systems that I think are important to be thinking about and why and how I think they have failed, I am going to start with the medical system, not because I think that they can't do good science, but because of the ways that they have allowed themselves to lose credibility over decades of time. A lot of that is the fault of insurance companies, in my opinion. I don't think, of course, I know that not every hospital administrator is sitting around just trying to screw over the patients and the public. But what every healthcare provider, it seems like in the country, is doing is not paying their nurses well, giving their nurses unsafe patient ratios, piling responsibilities onto nurses, including excessive shifts, while not sharing an appropriate amount of resources to keep those nurses going, like paid time off, like full-time positions with benefits, like decent working conditions where they can fulfill the ethics of the role that they trained for. So you have decades of nurses getting the experience that this hospital doesn't give a damn about the patients, this hospital doesn't give a damn about me. And so now when it comes time to do one more thing for the sake of the public, and that is get a vaccination, there is this resistance. And I think it's just that a lot of these people are at the place where there's a straw that breaks the camel's back, and they have stayed that way for a long time, and they are working really hard in this system, and they feel like they know truths about it that at some point they want to draw that line and say, you can't tell me what to do anymore. You can't. And the fact that it's this particular thing is not that relevant to me. I also think it looks super dark in here, so I'm going to hit a light. Getting enough light without it being too much with these windows placed where they are is really hard. I also went ahead and wore a bunch of dark clothing with a dark background, so that's on me. So going on with the medical system, in terms of outside of just people who work in the medical system, you've also got people in the world who do not have health coverage. There's nothing that they can get paid for, not that they can get paid for themselves, but that they can get covered in payment in the health system. So you've got doctors and nurses with moral injury on a daily basis going through abuse at their jobs. You've got a public who don't have, we don't have free home tests. We don't have enough testing capacity out there. You've got a lot of people who haven't had consistent access to healthcare, and what they have had has probably been really traumatizing. I mean, if you never see a doctor except when it's a huge emergency and you're going to die, or you are very, very, very sick and you're not able to participate in the decision-making process, that's traumatizing and upsetting. If that's the only relationship somebody has been able to have with the healthcare system because they never have coverage for the care that they need, that's exactly how you lose credibility. Insurance companies haggling and refusing to pay for stuff, that causes people to believe that no part of this system cares about me. I don't care about it either. And so that means that they're not going to listen even to credible information, because that there's no trust, and the loss of credibility is valid. And we've got to face that somehow. It's down to state governments refusing to expand Medicaid. It's down to pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, and device manufacturers just refusing to let up on the demand for profits, no matter what it does to public health. So everybody in this country is kind of a victim of the business capture of even the idea of a public health interest. Why should I get a vaccine to support public health when it's for one of these giant pharmaceutical companies that's not going to, take any kind of a cost onto themselves for it? They're not even providing their employees paid days off, probably. So then we get to labor. This includes pretty much every industry, small and large businesses in this country, but also the system of government that allows business to behave in the ways that it does. So nobody has paid time off. So that means if they get a big knockdown from that vaccine, that is a cost to the roof over their head in most cases, because wages are so depressed. Wages depressed to a point that is insulting. Most people are out here and either based on the number of hours that you can work, or the sort of secret off clock time, which even Amazon is getting some heat for, but just basically time that you somehow can't get compensated for, that you have to work anyway, that erodes whatever hourly rate there might be, even if it's decent, which it's usually not. In industry, there have not been production slowdowns, or the extent that there have been, they have been screamed and moaned about, and while refusing, again, to just keep the employees afloat and just go through a period of less productivity. People have no job protections. You can get fired for basically any reason or no reason at all. And then, so no shit, people are going to avoid getting tested because the quarantine period is a severe cost and consequence. And I can tell you that in the systems that are supposed to be helping people with emergency financial assistance and things like that are nigh unusable, at least the ones that I have interacted with in Mississippi on behalf of other people. So my other role in the world is as a housing counselor for a nonprofit organization. I do a lot of things related to housing, but there, we do not have enough individual-based rent relief. We do not have sufficient financial relief for people in general. And that's on a good day. That's outside the pandemic. We didn't have those things. So the fact that people have no faith and no confidence in these various systems to tell them anything legitimate, it should not surprise any of us. It can be frustrating, because it is to me, but there's a lot of reasons, I think, that these thought processes take the shapes that they do. I think it is a failure at the cultural level as well. And I think that the idea that labor problem and that medical problem and that housing problem are all based on individual failures and they are individual responsibilities to solve is ludicrous. So I think one of our issues in culture that touches each one of those areas, the medical fields and industries, every part of the labor market, every part of housing, is that in this country, it seems that no one, or at least very, very few people, certainly not anybody with any power, no one seems to be able to get out of the trap of constructing every solution to every problem around the business interests, the profits. And I say that as somebody who I think it's really important, actually, that we have really open-minded and not closed-loop conclusion first thinking in order to get anything accomplished. But in sort of multiple organizations that I have been some part of, when that type of discussion comes up of, okay, well, here are some hypothetical brainstorming type of concepts about broadly what the world without this particular problem looks like. You can't even speak that sentence without somebody in the room saying, okay, but what about the profits? What about, how do you get business on board with this? And so it shuts down the conversation. It shuts down the creativity. It shuts down the thought process. We're not allowed in this country to conceive of solutions to big problems without considering what the business interest will be. So we start with this point, and then we have to construct our solution around it. That's how we end up with all this money going into what we call housing that doesn't get into people's hands to support their housing. How we get all of this struggle in labor and a failure to understand, sort of how a cost of labor should be constructed. At this point, it's constructed just as a cost of the business and not as a cost to society for the person who needs to live to do that job. On the board of the organization that I work, we've got someone who created the idea of a housing wage. What wage in our local area would need to be paid on a full-time basis to get people up to the point of spending no more than 30% of their income on the rent based on the median rent here. And of course, that cost is much, much higher than what most people actually get paid. And when talking about how to talk about affordability, there seems to be this resistance to the idea of using housing wage as a measurement, it could be a tool for a number of things, including critique of business practices, but also critique of market behavior in housing. So that business interest, what about the profits kind of thing is a type of conclusion first reasoning that I see. I think it's really common. I think it gets trained through evangelical Christianity and other religious strict adherence types of things where you're not really allowed to be curious in your scriptural study. You're not really allowed to be critical. You know exactly what sort of end you're supposed to get to, and you're not supposed to engage with mystery in certain ways. And that's just a characterization of my own experience in those systems. So I've had all of that kind of swirling around in my mind, trying to not be angry and blaming toward individuals, but to try to understand what has put them in the situation that they're in, to be in that position of, saying, I'm not going to get vaccinated, or deciding that they're not going to worry about this very serious illness. And they have not had the luxury of rest. People don't get the luxury of rest and recovery, not for your brain, not for your body, not for anything in this country. And so recognizing that those things reduce people's capacities for critical thinking, that those things are also enmeshed with the indignities that they suffer in their workplaces, and the closed loop reasoning that they have been trained in often in local small town cultures and religion. And understanding that and seeing that we've got failures at the system levels, medical, labor, and business. Excuse me. housing and culture, law and policy interact with all of those as well. And the changes that need to be made, in my opinion, are very, very deep and very profound in the way that we imagine ourselves and what freedom means and what our connection to the other beings in our world really means. I think that we belong to each other, and that motivates a lot of what I do. I think that we are inextricably connected. Excuse me. I said I was going to cough, and now I've been talking for a while. So this yoga that we'll do, getting started here in a few minutes, is I was reflecting on a class that I took in New Orleans at Swan River Yoga that was a New Year's Eve yoga called Let Go and Let's Go. And it was a nice, strong practice, which is great for before you go out to run around New Orleans and listen to music and, I don't know, bop around all night. So you want some energy building to go do that. And at the time, you know, it's so funny, like to even think about the things that have changed since then have been the ideas of let go and the idea of let's go have taken on depth and complexity if I reflect on what those mean. So in the idea of letting go, there's a question embedded there of how much choice we really have to hold or to let go. And the reason I say that is because there's a difference between that inner release from ourself versus something sort of disappearing materially from the world, referring in part to the experience of my father's death, which affected me in really, really deep identity-based ways. Any parent death where you're part of each other's lives is going to be like that. You know, and he didn't die because I let him go, right? That's not really the way that happens. Things get removed sometimes, but just because it's been removed doesn't mean that you have let go of attachments to it, let go of how that thing interacted with identity, interacted with motivation. And so understanding where we do and don't have choice, we can only let go of something that we know we're holding on to. And that's hard to recognize, that, you know, it's scary to sort of realize, oh, this is something I'm choosing to hold on to. It's not just something that's innate about the world that's the truth. And I say that I believe in truth. I believe in expertise and credibility. I also, again, believe in open-minded and curious thinking. But for me, just personally, I'm definitely in a process of letting go aspects of materialism. I just really, I want to buy less and have less things. I have plenty. I have truly, you know, there have been wants and desires unfulfilled in my life, but I have had more than I needed all the time. I've been very lucky in that regard. And, you know, it's such a part of capitalism, especially for women, this idea of fashion, and it's in yoga as well, that you're supposed to look snazzy. You're supposed to have variety in your wardrobe. You're supposed to be cute, and these that, you know, that go along with all this body stuff as well. But broadly and in general for women is this pressure to buy and acquire enough things to look special enough to other people. And you can only do that if you accumulate new things. You can't just have what you already have and be happy with it. So one of my things I've been moving toward for several years is, you know, I want to wear something until it wears out. I want to drive my paid off car until it will not roll another rotation, because I don't want it go into the landfill. I don't want to contribute to that until it's absolutely necessary. And I would like for the systems around me to produce ways of getting to places and that are reliable and that are not about my individual ability to own a car to drive to every little thing I do. I would also like for us to be in a culture and a society where we're not expected to be 10 different places in a given day. We're at the point of, I don't know what I just, there's so much of it that seems like being on a hamster wheel. And I'm really glad that I'm glad not to have children, because I feel like that captures a lot of people's resources, and from financial resources to the acquisition and the accumulation and the new. And it's also very, very hard to teach children how to resist advertising and marketing efforts, which begin to be directed at them at very, very early ages. It's very hard to resist having to drive 400 places to get them to all of their things, or feel a pressure that you're not doing enough if you can't afford all the athletic fees and the lessons and the this and that and the gas to get them all everywhere. It'd be better for everybody if it was literally just the fields at the school or a walkable distance and could all be sort of located in one place. That's an aside, but just thinking about the ways that materialism and status keep us away from actual connection and keep us in that grind culture where we can never rest, we can never take ourselves back and introspect, where it's produce, and my value as a being is measured by what I'm able to produce. And if I am not at work producing, then it will cost me the roof over my head, or it will cost me my heating bill in January and February. So letting go of those grind culture, materialism, and status are the things that I am letting go of, and wonder whether you will too. I also want to say that as much as the CDC deserves the criticism it's getting right now with some comparisons to the let them eat cake kinds of things, it is trapped within this larger system and culture. That's a symptom of what I'm talking about when I say that we can't even have a conversation about solving problems without putting the business interest at the front of the conversation, that everything else has to be constructed around. We would have different messaging if the CDC was not under so much intense pressure to only produce messages that fit within this certain mold, where businesses don't have to sacrifice in order to keep their workers up. Even still, based on my history and learning and the way that authorities behaved and interacted with me in my early life and throughout adulthood up until COVID, again, I would have taken this illness into any workspace or any school that I've been in. Would have done it, because that is what I was taught. Thanks to this imperfect figure of the CDC, this imperfect institution that is subject to a ton of different political and diplomatic pressures, I have new and different information. I'm able to choose different behaviors based on that new and different information, that it is correct. Wearing masks reduces transmission. Avoiding contact with others reduces transmission opportunities. So if you are suffering from COVID right now, I encourage you to try not to be too discouraged about the people around you that have caused this. It's not that they didn't. I know that you already know that it's not worth blaming and shaming or getting angry toward them. Or it might feel better, it might feel more animated to feel angry about it, and that's fine. But think about how they have gotten into the position that they are, how they have come to be this person who rejects expertise or is simply seeing themselves as resisting an unfair, unaccountable, and no longer credible authority. And I think it is really that. more so than anything else. And I don't know what it would take to kind of build enough connection for some of these people to care, but I do know that them feeling connected enough somehow is the way, if that makes sense. So we'll come down to your back. Finally got to the yoga. I'll cough some more, I promise. Come down. Start to establish your breath. It's the foundation of all of yoga. It's also what you really need to be working on if you have COVID. And if it's easier to lie on your stomach, just do a little bit of breathing exercises, maybe a little child's pose. Don't overdo it. Getting full, deep breaths in and out through your nose. Letting your belly rise and fall with your breath. And walk your feet in flat to the floor. Begin to exhale. Pull your belly button down and through towards your spine. And inhale, open back out. Exhale, hug your belly down. Inhale, open and expand. Following your breath and waking up these muscles in the center of your body. On an exhale, pull your belly down, draw your legs in. You can hug tight if you want to here. You can rock back and forth on your back if you want to. And so we'll begin to take turns holding one leg at a time, taking a heel extension. So I'm going to hold my right shin, flex my left ankle, and inhale, reach my leg out long in front. Exhaling back in. Hold my left, inhale, reach my right heel out. Exhaling in. Extending through one heel at a time. Reaching hip through heel. And if you want, you can inhale, reach your heel out and let your chin lift up and hold it there, exhaling. Holding a little deeper in your abs. If you want, you can begin to reach one heel up at a time and switch. I'm exhaling in the switch and inhaling in extension. If you want, you can release your hands. one more heel extension to each side. And roll your head down, draw your knees in, bring arms above your head. Using this to try to open up your abdominal muscles and kind of release all of that engagement. But we're not done with them. So you're going to bring arms behind your head, bring the soles of your feet together, let your knees fall open, and you're going to basically, it's like a sit-up, but you're going to keep the heels together. You're going to exhale, draw elbows toward knees. Inhale, reach back. Not pulling on your neck, by the way, just turning your elbows forward and let it be in the middle of your body. 8 or 10 of these. Release your feet back down. Let's reach up, extending. If you want here, you can bring your hands together, walk your feet and arms over to your left side, opening up your side. And then walk them over to the right, opening up your right side. Coming back to center. And we're going to do a Pilates 100. Again, we're thinking about, you got to know you're holding on in order to let go. And sometimes we are holding on to things that we don't even realize. Sometimes we have to engage with what we're holding on to on purpose in order to understand where to let go, where to release. Hopefully that resonates. If nowhere else, then in your abdominal muscles. So we're going to have your body on the floor, arms along your sides, palms down, and you're going to draw your belly down like you're trying to brace your back against the mat a little bit, and then hug your legs up. Now you want to feel through your feet, and so you might point your feet, but not your toes, just your feet. And it doesn't matter if your legs are straight. If you're able to extend and straighten, that's fine, but if that's going to hurt your back, don't do it. Exhale. Draw your chin and shoulders off the floor and your arms up, and you're going to begin just teeny little bounces, and we're going to do 100 of these. Only your arms are moving and you're just pulling down through your belly. If you want, you can extend at an angle for a deeper ab work. Then draw in. Extend your legs, arms overhead. And I'm pretending like I'm pushing my feet against something and pushing my arms against something to try to lengthen here and stretch out everything that I've been kind of compressing. Walk feet back in. Flex your right ankle and place it on top of your left knee. Start to ease your right leg away from your body. And you can stay here, or you can draw your left leg up. And if you want to stay in the core work, you're going to draw yourself back up towards your leg, hugging your belly down while making a lot of room in this right hip. I'm going to relax down and pull this leg with me. Release your left foot, uncross your right, flex your left ankle, and place it on top of your right knee. At this point, you're easing your left leg away from your body. You're letting your left hip open up. On an exhale, you can just draw your leg in, or you can draw your leg in and hug your belly down, pull towards your leg, breathing. Release your foot back down. Uncross your feet. And bring arms along your sides, palms down, get your shoulders squeezed back for bridge pose. Plant arms, hands, and feet fully connected to the floor and lift hips. Breathing here. Full deep breaths. Keeping your legs hugging towards each other, but your knees are not knocking in. Feet flat to the floor. And exhale. Roll one vertebrae at a time. Slowly down. Knees fall together. Feet come out wide. I'm the wrong way around. I'm going to drop your knees from side to side like a windshield wiper. Easing out your hips. And from here, I've got to turn around. I'm so far back, scooted. I don't have a good place for my shoulders here. But anchor arms for your shoulders. Hug your belly in, lift your shins, and you're going to roll onto your left hip. Right shoulder stays grounded, or you place it on the floor, breathing. Inhaling out, exhale onto your right hip, left shoulder stays grounded. Inhale it back up. Get a hold of the backs of your legs. You're going to kind of scoop your belly in, and we're going to rock up and down on your back, using the strength of your core to kind of keep everything together through this movement. Holding yourself together, even though you're there's places where you're releasing in order to make this movement happen. And we're going to come up to boat pose. Lift. I would, right now, for me, I'm not going to try to straighten my legs, and I'm not going to try to get real high, because it's pretty hard, for one, and for another, because my back's not very warm yet. Lifting up through your chest. If you need to hold the backs of your legs, or if you need to place your hands behind you, do so. And then exhale, tuck your tailbone, roll, hover your shoulders and legs, and then release to the floor. And so maybe you train your abs like a maniac, and there's just no amount of core work that will feel like work to you. But surely in that case, you do know what it is to hug in your abdominal muscles and release them. And sort of that feeling of, wow, really let go with relief and release. So just giving ourselves a little recovery moment. If you want to knock your knees together, you can. And then this time we're going to rock up and down again. All the way through, if you can. That was not pretty, but it doesn't have to be. Coming up for tabletop. So shoulders over elbows, over wrists, and hips over knees. And we're going to begin. Exhale, pull your belly up and round up toward the ceiling. Inhale, drop your belly, lift your hips and your head. Exhale, draw up, pull through. Inhale, open it back out. Just following your breath. Take into opening your abdomen and the back muscles, extending your spine with one little movement at a time, thinking about trying to contact with your attention each individual vertebrae. Finishing up, rounding up to the ceiling and release back to a neutral spine. We'll inhale your left heel back, flex your foot. Exhale, knee to chest. Inhale it back. Exhale, hug and round. Inhale it back with the option to take your right arm out, exhaling knee to chest or elbow to knee. Inhale, reach. Exhale, hug. Inhale, reach. Try to bend your left knee and make a connection foot to hand. Press your foot into your hand to open the front of your left thigh and your right chest. Release, reach all the way back out, back down. Noticing how much, even though I say release, release the grasp of your hand, there's a lot you still have to hold on to. So we're usually not releasing without still having connection somewhere. Inhale your right heel back, flex your foot. Exhale, knee to chest or elbow to knee, or knee to chest, yeah. Inhale back. Exhale, knee to chest. Inhale back, option to take your left arm out. Exhaling, knee to chest or elbow to knee. Inhale, reach. Exhale, hug. Inhale, reach it out. Exhale, hug in. Inhale, reach. Bend your right knee. Make a connection, foot to hand, and press foot into hand to open the front of your right thigh and your left chest. Release that all the way out. Hand and knee come down. We're going to sink hips over heels, coming to child's pose, letting your forehead rest. And from here, plant your hands, tuck your toes, make your way up to a downward facing dog. We're going to do some plank floats. Pull your belly in, roll forward to your plank. Exhale, pull up through your hips, press to downward dog. Inhale, draw in, roll through. Exhale, lift and press back. Inhale, roll forward. Exhale, lift and press back. And this time, hang out in your downward dog. If you want to pedal your heels out one at a time, getting a stretch through your calves, then do so. And from here, we're going to inhale, right heel high to the sky. Bend your knee, open your hip, and find you some hip circles. A couple of them going one way, a couple of them going the other way. Turn back down toward the floor. Swing through between your hands and let your left knee drop. Coming up for a low crescent. You can be as tall or as deep in it. Just keep your hips square, chest forward, arms reach. And feeling how the reach comes from your connection to the floor. So you need to be hugging your hips, scissoring towards each other, right hip back, left hip forward, in order to lift and reach. And so what if we had less connection to the floor and how much effort it takes kind of to let go? Because letting go can be letting go of a support of some sort. You're going to tuck your left toes, push yourself up, high lunge. If you want to work hard, you can take a couple of dips and feel yourself maybe reach for connection, push away from it. Reach for connection, push away from it. You don't have to touch the floor. We're going to exhale, hands down, plant your left hand, inhale your right arm up high to the sky. Your left knee can be lifted, or you can bring it back down to the floor, either way. Exhale, right hand down. Take your right foot back to plank. Exhale, knees, chin, and chest into your inhale for cobra. Plant the tops of your feet. And exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale your left heel up high. Bend your knee, open your hip. You're pressing your chest toward your right knee and just get a couple circles each way. Turn back toward the floor, swing through between your hands, bring your right knee down and come up. Low crescent lunge, arms reach. Full deep breaths, feeling the reach build from the floor and from that pathway through your body. From your foot on the left to your knee, shin, and foot on the right. And then we're going to change it. Tuck your right toes and push yourself up. If you want to work a little harder, drop that knee a couple, 3 times. Reach for connection. Push away. My knee is more crackly with COVID than it normally would be. We're going to exhale, hands down. Plant your right hand. Inhale, left arm up high. Again, right knee can be lifted or you can bring it to the floor. Exhale your left hand down. Take it to plank. Roll through. Knees, chest, chin, or a bigger vinyasa if you want. Inhaling into cobra or up dog. Exhale. Downward facing dog. Inhale, right heel reaches high. Exhale, swing through between your hands. We're coming up for warrior 2. So your left foot is going to plant down. You can either be in a perfectly perpendicular T shape, this right heel going into the sole of your left foot, or if you have a little more rotation on this hip, you can push that foot out. Just don't lose your orientation toward the front. Reach your hands out, bend your right knee. It should go over the top of your foot, over to the pinky toe side and not dip in. Gaze over your right fingertips. Feel a reach in each direction. Or maybe you're letting go, reaching for something that you've already released or that needs to be released. Can work in your mind however you want. Straighten this right knee and slide over, reaching for triangle. Right hand drops lightly, left arm reaches up. And this is an interesting pose to me because the more I use my core to send my head out, the more I ground my feet. And vice versa. The more I ground my feet, the more I can reach. And so I might even be reaching. I'm not going anywhere, but I sure am reaching. Inhale back out. We're just going to switch sides. Turning around. This is just so that I can face the camera. If you want to do a vinyasa because you want to work, feel free. You can choose how much grind you want. It's not going to be because I drove you to it. So once again, choosing your foot alignment, starting with that perpendicular T shape. And again, I could, if I just slid, if I was on a slick surface, first of all, if I just take my right foot in a straight line, it's going to meet the sole of my, or the heel of my left foot. So the sole of my right foot, heel of my left foot. I want that line there. And I want that to stay even as I have room to rotate out a little bit and push my heel back. And that helps me have a deeper, more stable pose. So I'm reaching through my hands, looking over my left fingers, bending deeply into my left knee. If I'm pushing through my feet and reaching in all directions, where am I holding in the center? And we'll straighten that left knee, slide over, extending. Left hand drops down, right arm reaches. Again, feeling that from my hips is where the action of extending my spine is happening out through my torso, and it's in relation to this relationship to the ground. Inhale out, exhale, windmill around that front foot. Step back for plank. Roll through your knees, chin, chest, into your inhale, cobra. And exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale your inhale your right heel up high. Exhale, knee to chest. Inhale, reach it back. Exhale, knee to elbow on your right side. Inhale, reach it back. Knee to elbow on your left, cross your body. Inhale, reach it back. Exhale, swing through between your hands. You're coming up warrior two. Once again, bending into that right knee. Finding how your feet need to be connected. We're going to flip your right palm, reach back. This is peaceful warrior. And we connect this left hand to body somewhere down your leg or around your back. Breathing. And inhale out, then bring right forearm to your right leg, reach over. This is extended side angle, pressing, finding a line from the outside edge of your left foot all the way through your left fingertips. And if you have the room, you can take your right hand to the floor. You can also take a half bind, or if you have the room to really connect to yourself or explore what you're holding on to, take that right arm underneath and bind. You're going to release, coming all the way back out. Exhale, windmill your hands down. Step to your plank. Roll through. Inhaling into cobra. Exhaling. Downward facing dog. Inhale, left heel up high. Exhale, knee to chest. Inhale, reach it. Exhale, left knee, left elbow. Inhale, reach. Left knee, right elbow. Inhale, reach. Exhale, swing through. Come up for warrior two. Bending. Left knee, reaching through your hands. And we'll find that we can choose peace, flipping your left palm, reach back, right arm down. How many times do we say we can't solve problems of violence because we have to think of the business interests? Holding on around your back, maybe. Coming back out, bring left forearm to left leg. Right arm reaches over for an extended side angle. Really pressing out through your right leg and through your fingertips. So where in the middle here is holding on. Left hand can come to the floor if you have the room. Right hand can go behind your back if you want to. And again, what are we bound to? What are we making so much effort to bind ourselves to and hold on? That's actually really hard to maintain. This is some work, y'all. Releasing, come all the way out. Exhale, windmill down. Step to plank. Rolling through. And then exhale. Downward facing dog. Inhale, look up between your hands. Exhale, walk your feet up to the top. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, fold. Make sure your feet are no further than hip distance. Maybe your big toes touch. You're going to sink your hips, come up for chair. It takes work to let go. It takes work to identify what you hold. Sink your hips, belly draws in, arms reach. Bring hands together at your heart. You're going to take left elbow over right knee. Press your palms together, sink it down. Don't let your left knee creep forward. Hug it back, make sure you're level. We're going to release, coming to the other side. Right elbow over left knee. Breathing. And then release, press up and out. Exhale, hinge and fold. That feels like release, doesn't it? Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, fold. Sink your hips, inhale all the way to standing. And exhale, hands to heart. Breathe in here. Take a little rest if you want to come down to a seat. I'm going to look at my notes a little bit. And so in exploring what am I holding on to, it might look like something totally different to you. Again, I'm thinking of these ways of closed loop thinking, conclusion first thinking, these ways of training people out of real analysis, for the preservation of systems that harm them, us. And so when I think about, okay, what are we reaching toward, right? If we let go of business interests, what are we reaching toward? I'm going to come down to, because I actually didn't realize that my head yet still is not in this shot. I guess I would have to have this thing 10 feet in the air to get all of me this way and this way. But when again, for problem solving purposes, we have to be able to be open-minded. We have to be able to conceive of connections and ways of doing problem solving that I don't really think we do or are good at right now. Again, because we all start with the conclusion that we can't do anything unless we know how to make it appealing to business. If that's just a way of working on things that I'm so sick of, I could scream and it makes me really mad. And so I want everybody to let it go, damn it. Then what are we going toward? If we're saying let go and let's go, what are we going toward, reaching toward? And so in my mind, it is toward an idea of community health through personal sacrifice that isn't on top of already not getting paid enough to keep a roof over my head while I take care of these people, which is what we do to nurses. So community health that is, not neutral in terms of what is asked of us, but it's also not on top of what's already an unsustainable and unfair burden. Toward open-hearted engagement. So we'll do some heart openers in this next little segment. Taking care of each other, which means connection, and always means connection to people that you may think that you don't have connection to. And I think that's what we'll, start with in terms of connection here, because I think in yoga, we're dealing with mind, body, spirit, and we're working within this system of the body that we have this agency and control over the material actions that it takes, or do we, depending on what kind of training and history we have and how open we are, all determine how much choice we actually have within this body and this self. But if we think of mind, body, spirit as in, spirit being in yoga terms inseparable from all other pieces of spirit, every other mind, body with its little seed of spirit on earth is connected. And that's within our houseplants, the plants outside, the earth itself. If we can really start to think of this on a big scale. And if we start acknowledging connections with these things that seem so different from us, where can we get in problem solving? Where can we get in problem solving on climate if we can't get there without appeasing the hydrocarbon industry? I don't know the answer, but we've got to stop putting them first in every single conversation that matters on that topic. So we'll explore some connection in our own body, including difference in our own body. And we'll talk about, reaching when we're getting in our own way and reaching with a release. So to begin, now you can't see my face. Sorry. I should have just put the other camera, but too late now. I'm going to do eagle pose. And I like this for an idea of connection because we always feel like the two sides of our body are so different. I mean, I can look in the mirror and tell you, again, because I used to buy a lot of cosmetics and I used to do a lot of mirror preening, exactly why one eyebrow is different from the other and how they have to be tweezed differently. I can look and kind of see differences side to side in a variety of ways in my body. Of course, most of us are one hand dominant. And so in your hands, which are a big connection portal to the world, one feels totally different in skill and sort of competency and strength than the other. And I don't know, it doesn't look super obvious to me on camera, but I know the right arm and shoulder is bigger than my left. Most of the time our hips feel really different. Anytime we do an asymmetrical pose, it feels completely different from one side to the other. And so the two sides of our body, though, are part of the same body. So whatever all that information is, how all those perceived differences don't change the fact that they are in one body. I'm looking at what this message is saying. Oh, it's complaining about my internet connection. Sorry, that's the Wi-Fi my condo comes with. So for eagle pose, we entwine the two sides of our body together in order to strengthen and balance on one point of contact with the floor as opposed to 2 points of contact. So sinking weight into my right foot, really trying to sort of from my belly inside of my hip, like drive down through the center of my leg. Now let my knee bend. Left foot crosses over. I can keep my toe plugged there, or I can wrap it all the way around. Then I take right arm over left, snuggle my elbows, and wrap back of my hands or palm to palm and sit. Breathing. And the more I sit into it and the more I entwine the two sides of my body, the better my balance is going to be. Releasing back out. And then we're going to change the cross of legs. Bend left knee, right foot crosses over. Plug in or wrap. Left arm over. Wrap. Breathing, bringing the two sides of your body together with each other. Each doing their part to hold you up. Unwinding. Whew. And so I always feel stronger after a little eagle pose. From here, we're going to come up to the top of your mat. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, hinge and fold down. Inhale to lift halfway and lengthen. Exhale, fold. Inhale your right foot back. We're coming to warrior two. Doo-doo. You can do a little song if you want to. Just getting your feet, ankles, lower legs, all pushing in. Left arm reaches, gazing over your left fingers. Ultimately, we're going to go to half moon, but we're going to explore a little bit first. So straighten your left knee and come to triangle. Again, reaching out. So your arms are the same way in a half moon. Imagine trying to keep your knee straight and how hard you would have to work to push out over this foot. Don't do it. You're not supposed to. Your body's not supposed to work that way. But how much work it would be because of how this body is aligned. So what if we come back out, align upright, and then make a change. Bend into this left knee. I'm going to back up because otherwise you're not going to be able to see it. And I also might run into the couch. So bending your left knee, then we can tip, flexing right foot. Opening out, maybe you need a block for this. And breathing. Inhaling back out. Exhale, windmill hands down. Step to your plank. You can knees, chest, chin if you want to. Chaturanga to upward dog, you can. Exhale. Downward facing dog. Inhale, look between your hands. Exhale. Walk your feet up to the top. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale and fold. Inhale, left foot back. Coming up, warrior two. Once again, getting lined up, getting yourself set. Gazing over your right fingertips. Straighten that right leg, reach over, and drop your hand. So when I say we've got to problem solve without putting the business interests first, this straight knee in the front is the business interest. We're never going to get to our half moon pose, releasing this left side and being in our beautiful balance if we insist that we have to keep this right knee straight. We're not in the right alignment. We've got to lift up, realign, make a change, soften, find space somewhere in someone's fucking profit margin. Back up if you have a piano that you're going to launch yourself into. Or anything else. Don't run into anything. Space. We are physical beings in a plane and small apartments. So bending your right knee, flex your left foot, reach. Open your chest forward, open your left arm. Inhale back out. Yay, half moon. Exhale, windmill down. Take it back to plank. Roll through. And exhale to downward facing dog. And we'll take feet wide apart. This may cause your heels to come close to the floor. That's just because, again, anytime we make a change, we make a change. Everything changes. So it may feel real different. I like this version. We're going to do a down dog twist. You're going to take your right hand closer to the center of the mat and take your left hand anywhere on your right leg and push through that right shoulder. Breathing. Inhale back out, left hand comes to the center, closer to the center, doesn't have to be exact. Right hand comes around anywhere on your left leg. And you're really pushing through your left shoulder if you can. And releasing back out. Bring your feet back a little bit close. Inhale, look between your hands. Exhale, walk your feet up to the top. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, fold in. You're going to be in this forward fold for a minute. So take your feet wide. If you want to, you can really bend your knees and lay your torso over your thighs. And so go ahead and do that. Lay your torso over your thighs. Let your knees bend, your hips sink. You take your hands, slide them up to your wrist, under your feet. If this makes you feel trapped, you don't have to do it. But just imagine sort of, this is my idea of we're all connected to each other inextricably. Can't escape. So we've got to find some flexibility within. Sink hips. And I'm stretching my hands and shoulders and my low back. Exhale, fold back in. And I can use my toes to massage my hands by making and acknowledging this connection between two super different parts of my body. Like my hands and feet definitely do not get confused with each other. They think they are totally different because they're playing different roles in the universe of this body. Release that back out. Sink your hips. Inhale up to standing. And exhale. Hands to heart. And so I have a thing that I want to read and go through. Like I said, I had a lot to say today, so we're just going to be here for as long as it takes. If you want to go, you can go. It's the internet. But I want to finish with a heart opener because in terms of, we're always balancing connection and openness. Being open-minded doesn't mean that every perspective is equally credible. Just because these institutions have gone through a very authentic process of destroying their own credibility doesn't mean that we don't need the institutions to be in place, and it doesn't mean that everything they have to say is wrong. So there's a balance to be struck, and heart-opening postures, I think, are a good way to feel that in the body. So I'm going to line myself up here to be able to share the thing I want to share in a few minutes. Welcome to Chilling Out with Me. I'm looking for a thing I want to show you from the internet. Also, I want to say I'm coughing, but I really rested deeply for several days when I realized that we might be sick. because you have to. You really need to. It's the most important thing if you are unable to avoid COVID. So I'm definitely on the other side, and I feel it's like a slightly more winded than I should from this practice, but it's a good challenge level. I went on a good trail walk yesterday and did some yoga. Okay, it's taken me a minute to get there, but I promise you it's going to be worth it after a little bit. There's the multi one. Here we go. All right, so first, camel pose. This is one of my favorite heart openers, and it used to be one I really hated, honestly. And I think that we're warm enough. If you don't feel warm enough, then don't do it. So I do this with my toes tucked because I can't really quite get to my feet behind me without them tucked. And I'm making sure that my hips are over my knees. It's a straight line from the hip points through my thighs to the floor, not from whatever outside of my hips. So I'll turn, and maybe you'll be able to. It can be hard to tell on me with a lot of things with my joints because they're really open, and I have to work pretty hard to make anything that looks like a straight line, because that's what happens if I just try to say, oh, straighten my arm, is that I get these, I can really turn it in some weird ways, have a lot of rotation and things, and curvy looking lines on my own body. So the pose does not have alignment. The person has alignment, a line for you in these physical postures. So straight line, my toes are tucked. First, I'm gonna take your hands. They can either be palms up or palms down, resting on your back, but you wanna really open up your shoulders and have your shoulders way open and rotated around. And for me, palms or fingertips up helps with that. So you're supporting your low back. Lean into your hands, open your chest, lean back. Exhale, lift back out. Make a basket with your feet, sit down. And so heart opening usually drives up your heartbeat and energizes you. Trying to find an open-hearted perspective or an open-minded perspective can be really challenging for that reason, because it can be really scary to let go of a script that you have been operating on for a long time, to let go of something that you only just figured out that you had a hold of. And even though it's toxic, it feels like it's yours. It can be anything in your life, honestly. You don't have to be in this kind of macro solving the problems of the world place that I tend to land. I'll do another round with camel. Coming up. Tuck your toes. Tall, ready. Again, letting all of this just open up. So you can do the exact same thing we just did using the support of your hands, or you can take one hand at a time to the heel on the same side. So right hand, you can come on through or not. Right hand to heel, left arm reaches. Exhaling out and switch, left hand to heel, right arm reaches. Exhale out, take two more each side. Make a basket with your feet, sit down. Maybe really glad for doing some core strengthening, some grip and holding earlier, and maybe feeling where you now have to let go and where you have to strengthen. There's always those things corresponding with each other. So if we make If we make big changes, it doesn't just mean letting go of the old ways or destroying everything. It really means we've got to figure out where to strengthen and where to build in order to allow and create that release that we need from, these concepts and these ways of thinking that get in our way. Last one, we're going to come up, tucking toes, lining up. You can either support with your hands or do one hand at a time. Regardless, if you get back and you can see the wall behind you, you have the option to drop your hands. Exhale, tuck your chin. Basket with your feet, sit down. If you want to maybe give yourself a couple of neck rolls. Releasing after a lot of tension through your spine. And then if it's comfortable, reach out to child's pose, releasing all those back muscles. We're going to come up just for a little seated twist. I'm just bringing my bent right leg under me and my left foot crossed over my right leg. Holding on, pulling my spine up close. Wrap my right arm, take that left hand behind and breathe. And release back out. Change the cross of your feet. Right foot over left. Hug up close. And then wrap your left arm. Right arm comes behind. Breathing. And release back out. So guys, I'm going to leave your Shavasana to you. It's up to you to come down, rest, and integrate all this stuff. So before we get there, though, I'm going to leave you with one last thing. It'll take me a few minutes to read through it. And so this was posted in a private group by someone that I know who says they were in Europe over Christmas break and went to the Munich, Germany Rise of the Third Reich Museum. And they took a series of photos of this source about how not to let your country fall into fascism, as Germany did at that time. And so I wanted to read the words from that post. Listen for dangerous words. Be alert to the use of the words extremism and terrorism. Be alive to the fatal notions of emergency and exception. Be angry about the treacherous use of patriotic vocabulary. Believe in truth. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. If nothing is true, then no one can criticize power because there is no basis upon which to do so. If nothing is true, then all is spectacle. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights. Defend institutions. It is institutions that help us to preserve decency. They need our help as well. Do not speak of our institutions unless you make them yours by acting on their behalf. Institutions do not protect themselves. They fall one after the other unless each is defended from the beginning. So choose an institution you care about, a court, a newspaper, a law, a labor union, and take its side. Be wary of paramilitaries. When the men with guns who have always claimed to be against the system start wearing uniforms and marching with torches and pictures of a leader, the end is nigh. When the pro-leader paramilitary and the official police and military intermingle, the end has come. Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Modern tyranny is terror management. When the terrorist attack comes, remember that authoritarians exploit such events in order to consolidate power. The sudden disaster that requires the end of checks and balances, the dissolution of opposition parties, the suspension of freedom of expression, the right to a fair trial, and so on, is the oldest trick in the Hitlerian book. Do not fall for it. Beware the one-party state, for God's sake, Mississippi. The parties that remade states and suppressed rivals were not omnipotent from the start. They exploited a historic moment to make political life impossible for their opponents. So support the multi-party system and defend the rules of democratic elections. Vote in local and state elections while you can. Consider running for office. Investigate. Figure out things for yourself. Spend more time with long articles. Subsidize investigative journalism by subscribing to print media. Realize that some of what is on the internet is there to harm you. Learn about sites that investigate propaganda campaigns, some of which came from abroad. Take responsibility for what you communicate with others. Take responsibility for the face of the world. The symbols of today enable the reality of tomorrow. Notice the swastikas and the other signs of hate. Do not look away and do not get used to them. Remove them yourself and set an example for others to do so. Make eye contact and small talk. This is not just polite. It is part of being a citizen and a responsible member of society. It is also a way to stay in touch with your surroundings, break down social barriers, and understand whom you should and should not trust. If we enter a culture of denunciation, you will want to know the psychological landscape of your daily life. Be as courageous as you can. Contribute to good causes. Be active in organizations, political or not, that express your own view of life. Pick a charity or two and set up autopay. Then you'll have made a free choice that supports civil society and helps others to do good. Remember professional ethics. When political leaders set a negative example, professional commitments to just practice become more important. It is hard to subvert a rule of law state without lawyers or to hold show trials without judges. Authoritarians need obedient civil servants, and concentration camp directors seek businessmen interested in cheap labor. Professional ethics. Practice corporeal politics. Power wants your body softening in your chair and your emotions dissipating on the screen. Get outside. Put your body in unfamiliar places with unfamiliar people. Make new friends and march with them. Learn from peers in other countries. Keep your friendships abroad or make new friends in other countries. The present difficulties in the United States are an element of a larger trend, and no country is going to find a solution by itself. Make sure you and your family have passports in addition to vaccines. And that's the end of the list. All of that seems really simple, but it's actually a lot of hard work to participate in civil life and be concerned with these big picture questions and these kind of how to change systems things. And I think in terms of my yoga, I'm always thinking of, my mind, body, spirit system as a microcosm of a lot of other things. If I can make changes here, if I can work hard here, then my hard work might make a change somewhere else. It might be a tree that I don't get to see the fruit from, but I should spend time watering and growing the things that matter to me. Once again, going back to the crisis that we are in with this pandemic is because of large scale system failures that are coming from a real, like we've been in a real serious authoritarian crisis in the United States and in several states, and we have a lot of reasons to have lost faith in institutions. And what we need to do is get a little better organized, turn out to vote, figure out what the things are that will uphold these institutions while increasing freedom and equity and equality. Go of whatever preconceived notions we have about how this has to go and how it has to be. And in the words of all of my football fan friends, and go Dogs.